Tuperas y tuperas today on Doop by the River. Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially back. The Philadelphia Union gear up for match 1 against the Columbus Crew. So, of course, we're going to break it all down here today. So don't you dare go anywhere because you do not want to miss this episode of Doop by the River. And let's get it started, guys. Done!
Doop by the River
doesn't do anything well. There is not one.
I'm sorry. There was no creativity.
As a Union fan, I take that all day.
Another DP. We need to go get Mario Balotelli. And that is right. Welcome, everybody, to Doop by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union. And, of course, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Network. Before we dive into today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in. Thank you so much. If you're tuning on live from channel, we are also live here on Twitter. We are live on Doop by the River podcast Twitter account. So if you're live from there, thank you so much for tuning on in. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in our expert in Doop as well. So please welcome our guy, Mr. Justin Charcuterie Freiberg. What's up, Justin? How you feeling, brother?
Pretty good. You know, it's already a been a busy week.
Yes, sir.
For those of y'all who were at the Meet the Team event last night and saw.
Dude, what a crowd!
Yeah, no, I was there. I was there at the Sons of Ben table probably till about a little after like 8:15, and it like the line was out like still bonkers even at 8 o'clock, and it was nuts. So people are excited. I mean, the Union are back, and it's locked and loaded, and I think people are genuinely excited for this year.
I for sure, man. I was listening to Ali this morning on 97.5, The Fanatic, and it was really crazy hearing him talk about the event. I remember going to the one at David Buster's. I think 2019 was the last one I went to, and there was a little bit of a wait. But you mentioned how like the event was like 1 hour long because there wasn't really that many fans. For them to be there for 4 hours, sitting down, signing autographs, taking selfies, and all that. I mean, like, obviously that's a lot for them, but it is pretty cool how much it has grown as well. So definitely pretty dope. While we're talking about that, Justin, I really wanted to get your thoughts. I know you heard about the radio broadcast deal with 97.5. How you feel about that, man?
I'm actually surprised. It definitely, and I think for the positive, I think that's been a big issue. Besides TV stuff, TV's always kind of been an issue, but now with Apple TV, I think that definitely helps alleviate a lot of those concerns. I mean, 97.5 is a pretty big station in the area.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a solid reach. I think there are people on that network who are definitely. I mean, they have Jim on regularly. Them and WMMR. The Press and Steve show have him on pretty regularly. So, having a sports network that is, a bit sympathetic, and I think understanding that the league is growing, the team is growing, the team is building. And, I think between the two stations, I think 97.5 is definitely the better avenue in terms of growing the game, because I think the fan base that definitely consumes, sports media in this town is definitely in that 4-for-4 crowd. But I think you definitely notice that the people that listen to 97.5 tend to seem to be ones that actually, like understand soccer or seem to be okay with the sport growing as it is. So it feels like that's the right move. And also because of the, the reach, you'll be able to, reach a solid number of people in the tri-state area.
That is definitely big. Real quick though, Justin, I want to just say hello. What's up, Elijah? Thank you so much for coming back here, man. We're back, man. We're back, and we're ready to talk about some Union soccer this season. We'll be here all season long. Right now, what's going on, brother? I hope you're having a great night. He's got the Fang Snakes going. Let's go, Doop on. Justin, I'm very passionate about this topic because I do cover all 5 Philly sports. And there's a reason why I do that, because I'm tired of the whole 4-for-4 mantra. I'm tired of disrespect of the biggest sport in the world. And so I'm excited about this, but in the same right, I'm very cautious about it as well, because I don't know if you saw, Justin, the minute we have that big announcement, Jim on the air, great. And then right after that show, Justin, you got the Anthony Gargano show. And what does he do? His topic is the state of 4-for-4 Philly sports. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, right after that major announcement, you think that is the topic of the show you should have? But I digress there. What I really don't want is them to treat the union like a second fiddle again. Look, in July, if there's nothing to talk about, stop manufacturing storylines. If the union are facing off against, for an example, FC Cincinnati for first place, that should be talked about a little bit. That's where I hope that the 97.5 can hold themselves accountable to that, because listen, their hosts have shown love, but some of their hosts have also been very inconsistent, including Gargano, who, by the way, was one of the first voice you hear in the Sons of Ben documentary. So I'm very passionate about this, because I don't want our club to be second fiddle, but I do understand, like you mentioned, it's a big station. So I do understand the importance of that as well, Justin. So we'll see how that plays out, man. First match this weekend, we'll see how that does play out. But Justin, we got another season upon us. So before we get into Saturday, I want to look at the roster here as a whole right now, right? Because look, the expectation, we could talk about predictions, but I think the expectation, the prediction, everyone believes that this club should be going right back to the MLS Cup, should be first in the Eastern Conference again, because that's just the way they're kind of stacked up. So today, Justin, what we're going to do is we're going to look at each one. We're going to break down each position group, and we have some questions, and we're going to answer them for everyone here. So let's get started, Justin. So first up, I got to start with your favorite position, brother. We're going to look at our goalkeepers here. So this is what we're looking at in 2023. Obviously, no change, Andre Blake. The big one, of course, Justin, is no Matty Freeze. We wish him nothing but the best over in New York. Joe Bendick, and, of course, the newcomer, Holden Trent. So the question here I have, Justin, because obviously Blake, we always call him Mr. Permanent Marker, but we know he's going to be great. And we want to see what else can he do this year. But the main question, though, Justin, is, Andre, obviously we're going to play a lot of games, but also, too, Andre does get called up by Jamaica. So do you think we are okay if we have to miss Andre Blake for an amount of time?
Yeah, I think, listen, we wish Matty Freeze all the best up in New York until he plays us. Then, we hope he has a howler or two. That's how it always works.
Facts.
But listen, I think there's a reason you've kept Joe, on there. He's been a starter in this league. He knows what it takes. He's a great mentor for Holden Trent. I think you'll see Bendick more if it's a league game. But I know this year, there is the you have Nations League in March and in June. So you do have some potential for Andre to miss some time. I don't anticipate an issue because there's not that many competitions for the Cup. You're definitely going to see obviously Joe get more of the starts. I wouldn't be surprised if they Open Cup, maybe Holden Trent gets in if need be, and Leagues Cup. I think the competitions where, not that the Union aren't going to take it seriously, but I think where rotation is going to have to be key. But, as I say, Andre Permanent Marker is going to be written in, more than 90% of these games. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue for the few games that will miss him.
I'm going to be really intrigued with Holden Trent. I do hope he does see some time. Any potential he does see time with Union too.
Yeah, I think that would kind of be the main point, just to get him time. I mean,
Right.
The same thing with Matty Freeze to kind of keep him, fresh, because he was the backup. So I think Joe, having Joe kind of as the, that option of, listen, he'll probably be the game day goalie and have Holden Trent play U2 to keep him fresh, I think is kind of the idea, because Joe, he's been on this league long enough. I don't think you're going to have to worry about him staying, stagnant or just not being able to come off the bench. Right? So yeah, I think Alden Trent will definitely be the U2 goalie for more of the year.
Yeah, it definitely intrigues me, man, because obviously now that Matt's gone, like we don't have like that young incumbent in there. And so I really do am curious. I am curious to see what he can give us. From everything we've been hearing, Justin, it's been good stuff. He's got a little bit of that killer instinct. Obviously, just has to get acclimated to this level. So I'll be definitely be watching there. But Justin, this is an important position to this podcast because of you, my friend. So we'll be watching this with clear eyes. But Justin, let's move on to the strongest suit of this team, probably, or we'll debate that in a little bit. But this by far was the strongest point of the Union last year, and that's the back line. Obviously, you keep the same back line, which is huge. Kai Wagner, Jakob Glazes, Jack Elliott, Olivier Bizo, of course, behind them, Matt Rial. The new incumbent, Damian Lowe. Thank you, Miami, for that one as well. Brandon Craig, hopefully we see a lot more from him. Nathan Harriel, who could definitely start as well. And then, of course, you have Anton Sorensen, who we really don't know a lot about as far as first-team minutes go this season. But, Justin, my question here is, obviously, can we keep this group intact? Obviously, injuries is always a factor for any level here. But, of course, when you had rumors for Glasnes this past winter break, you've had rumors for Kai Wagner for like the last 3 seasons. That's going to be the key, right? There's really not much else there, Justin.
Yeah, I think the fact that one of the main reasons that the Union are still seen as the top contender in the East is because you kept this defense together. The number 1 defense in the league last year, second fewest goals all time in a single season, second highest goal differential of all time. So, this defense was a main part of the resurgence of the building of a dominant force. I'm not too concerned about the transfers because despite what we've heard about Kai Wagner, as I've said, multiple podcasts, it's all been agent driven. Like there's really hasn't been anything that feels concrete, anything to the point where it's really pushed anything. The Besiktas with Glesnes was kind of the first, and after the Union basically said no, it's too low, you didn't hear much else. Unlike with El Brujo, where you heard more and more. So I think it was just kind of a initial peruse of the league. I think having Damian Lowe as depth, and I think you will see more time Brendan Craig. I think Lowe and Craig will allow, as the Union have done, where when we had Stu Finley, to rotate in an additional center back and give Glesnes or give Elliott the night off and allow them to keep fresh. And I think that was part of what helped them at times when either one was going down or one needed a break, and keeping players fresh. And I mean, that's why with Kai, you have Matty Rial, who after what felt like potentially him leaving the club a few seasons ago, has started to kind of become an indispensable depth option. And, Olivier, after, we said last season and for a while, his defensive game needed a lot of work, and Nate stepped in. Olivier claimed his job back, and they kind of platooned, as you needed the more defensive option, Nate was in. If you needed someone more going forward and exploiting that space, Olivier was in. And I think you saw a nice, platooning on that right side. I do not anticipate a drop, a true drop in form from this defense. I think obviously it's hard to match what they did last year, but I think there's also a reason why there's, the team is still perennial favorites, and this, lockdown defense is absolutely a major reason.
A question off of one of your points, Justin. So you brought up the right back position. It's very complex and it's very interesting because, like I mentioned, either one of these guys can start. Do you envision this year that one of these two kind of separates themselves and makes himself the solidified right back, or do you think it'll just continue being platooning all season?
I don't know. I mean, I think we talked about it last year where we thought Nate was, should come in and take it over, and he did for a bit, and then so it kind of flip-flopped with the platooning. So I feel like it's going to be the same. I think Jim knows that he has two amazing options, and you want to give both guys playing time. You want to, they obviously all play with each other. Swapping Nate in or swapping Olivier in is not going to change any of the chemistry on that line. So I think you're still going to see platooning because I think both are great options, and I think both bring their their traits to as I said, Nate is probably one of the best 1v1 defenders, if not the best on the team, and Olivier is absolutely the modern fullback who can break up the wing, but also has worked on his defensive game, and last year did improve in that area where he was a bit of a liability in the 2021 season.
Absolutely, man. We all remember the Eastern Conference Finals. He definitely improved upon that last year, though. You ready for 3-back set?
No, I was joking. I was on a Columbus podcast on Monday.
Hey, give a shout out. Where were you at, Justin? Give a shout out, man.
Gosh,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it was seriously. I will have to we'll have to plug them later once I find
for sure. We'll put them in description, brother.
I said because of Damian Lowe and because of the guys you have, I think a 3-back set is possible. I think you would look at a 3-5-2, and Jim did mention this season that the 4-4-2 was kind of becoming stale at a certain point, and they did kind of have to play with the formations, and I think that's a reasonable option. So yeah, you joke about 3-back set. I think that could be a legitimate option for
No,
this team.
I'm excited. I think that it is very necessary. We'll talk more about tactics in a bit, but Justin, let's move on to the midfield, which I believe this year is the strongest unit of the bunch. But here's kind of our midfield. This is the best I can do. Now, keep in mind there are some players here who play multiple positions, but the gist of the option one of the diamond, as we all continue to run, that's obviously still Daniel Gazek, tip of the diamond, Flock at the left, El Brujo at the 6, Ali at the right. But then you have a lot of depth, and that's kind of the theme this year in the midfield. You have Joaquin Torres and Quinn Sullivan, who, look, they could probably play a couple different positions, even in the attack as well, like as forwards as well. But we'll see where that leaves them. We have Jeremy Rafinha, who we remember. Thank you, Red Bull, for that one. Of course, you have Andres Pereira right behind Alejandro Bedoya, who can also play as a 6, but what it seems to be is that he will be the replacement for Ali, and we'll talk about that in a second. Of course, you have Jesus Bueno, who has played a lot as a shuttler, but can play as a 6 as well. Richard Odala, who a lot of people still bring up that Pachuca match last year. We'll see what he can do, what minutes, or what he can do in the minutes that he gets this season, I should say. And of course, the left shuttle midfielder. Listen, Leon Flock, Jack McGlynn have been locking that down for the last 2 seasons, and they continue coming back here yet again for another one, man. But I guess the question really here, Justin, I just mentioned a bunch of different players, but what exactly does the rotation look like in your opinion?
I think this rotation is gonna be key. I think we have seen it with El Brujo, where he has had games that he's not been great, and
or he's suspended.
And I think you've seen Jim not afraid to bench him and put Leon back there. I think Jesus Bueno will definitely get more time. Richard Odada definitely was making the bench more often as the season went on. Leon is hard to take off of that side because of his what he brings, but when you have Jack McGlynn as that deep lying passer, he brings another element to that midfield. Ali, after an unfortunate injury plague towards the end of the last season, I think that's why he brought in Pereira. He is traditionally a 6, but I think in this system he is as I've said, the most likely Ali heir that we have.
He certainly can attack, that's for sure.
I think, and that's the thing, because of his ability to get forward and make those late crashing runs like Ali likes to do, and was why Ali for a while was, putting in the goals, was because he loves to make those late crashing runs. And then up top, I think, with the depth that you have, Obviously, Gazdag is basically going to be playing most of it. But as Hungary's been doing well, I think you're going to see him also, like with Andre, you're going to see him being called up for the national team, which is why you got Torres, which is why I think Quinn will get more time. And we haven't seen much, we haven't seen anything out of Raffanello, but I think you're going to have to go top to bottom with the depth in terms of rotation. So he may get a few minutes here and there.
I'm really intrigued by this, and I we'll talk about the forwards in just a second, but just kind of where they put Joaquin Torres is definitely be interesting. When you had Paxton Aronson, you had the clear cut, who's your number 10, who's the backup 10, but this year it's definitely different. For Gazdak though, MVP, are we finally going to give the love to Gazdak he deserves? Justin, are we going to get that?
At this point I don't even bother, because the fact that he wasn't even the candidate for MVP from the Union, I understand Andre had an insane season and so did the defense, but the disrespect even from certain the media is like Gazag's not even the best player in his team. It's like, well, having the best goalie in the league shouldn't detract from a 10 that set the Union single goal scoring record.
What up numbers, dude? Numbers.
And was not very far. Was what, 2 goals off the the Golden Boot race? Like, I think that's kind of BS to ding him for his teammates being just as good in a different position.
I mean, dude, listen, it's going to be tough to replicate that, obviously. Like, that's number one, but he was by far the best player on this team. You mean, you bring up Andre, but the thing is, Justin, like, we've seen Andre do this for like over 5 seasons, right? This is like the first time we've seen that from a Union number 10 consistently all throughout the season. So I think that was a big difference. I do want to talk about Leon real quick, because I don't think a lot of people talked about he was better in the attack last year. Like, he actually contributed in the attack, especially in the final third. Those are areas we really criticized him in the past. And so I'm hopeful that he can build upon what he did last year. Maybe he develops more of that game and is more of a clinical finisher. Who knows? But, it's funny because with McGlynn and Flock, they have weaknesses, and the other player, it's their strong suit. So it's interchangeables. But I'm really going to be looking forward to Flock here. And obviously Jim's going to be relying a lot upon him, considering El Brujo stuff as well, brother.
Yeah, I think with Leon, you definitely saw, I think, Ali's influence in terms of knowing when to crash the box was key. I mean, that was he scored the a crazy kind of crane kick, crane style kick goal in the game against Cincinnati. And I think that's what happens when Ali's influence kind of rubs off. And I think if Leon takes that next step and chips in, say, 5 goals this season,
wow.
I mean, I think that's not a crazy, in all competitions to chip in 5 goals. And they've talked about potentially up to like 55 games, I think, is kind of what the Union have projected if all goes well in certain competitions. I think I would love to see Leon up that offensive production and see if he can really, because I think those are kind of numbers that Ali can put up and Ali has put up. So it's like, if you can get more of that kind of influence and allow a Brujo to kind of sit back and have 2 shuttlers that can both crash, I think you definitely give more options in the attack.
As Union Holkey would say, Justin's got me moist with the 5 goals from Leon Flack. I'm in. I'm so in on that, brother. All right, let's look at the last group of positions here. We're going to look at the forward position. So, yes, I did bring in Joaquin and Quinn in here. We'll see. So, obviously, the top of it, Ure and Carranza. I think those guys were balling last year. Excited to see more from them. Behind them, Chris Donovan. I'm expecting Joaquin Torres to kind of fill in as that backup, depending upon the situation. And then, of course, you have the new incumbent. Congratulations to Nelson Pierre. We obviously didn't bring that up, but he got signed this week. Congratulations to him, a homegrown player. And then, I did put in Quinn Sullivan in here because, I'm still banging on that drum that he should get some minutes as a forward here. But I guess the question here would be, number one, Carranza and Ure, right? Justin, these guys last year put up 27 goals together. Now, remember, beginning of last year, obviously Ure had his visa issues, had his injury, so it took him a little bit to get acclimated. Carranza, dude, he got really comfortable, and then he exploded, and then obviously we saw the signing, and the rest was history there. But for this bunch, can they score over 35 goals, you think? 27 last year. I'm just bumping it up by 8 this year.
Is that just between
Those
Ua
two.
and Current?
Just 8 plus 8 more goals this year.
I don't know. I think between the two of them, maybe just shy of 35.
Okay.
I mean, I think if they both bag, I think they could both bag at least 15. I think you could talk about at least 30 goals. And, they both do have assists. So you could talk about maybe, 15 goals and I would say 6 to 7 assists in that point. I think, again, while we talked about the injuries, the visa issues to start, the injuries, when he got going, I mean, he was dangerous. He was that behind threat. And the thing I loved about him was we saw his runs were direct. He timed his runs perfectly. He made him a Barca back line, and he went at the net. He didn't go to the corner. He didn't make it across the box. He made it at the net, and he forced the goalie to come out. And he just had the technical ability to pull it out of his feet and slot it home most of the time. Carranza is that hold up striker. He loves to get on the ball. He loved to connect with Gazdag. That triangle, of Ua, Carranza, and Gazdag really, really shone bright. And I think, while you're gonna miss Corey Burke, Chris Donovan is kind of what they consider the likeness, similar, play style to Corey Burke. I think Joaquin Torres is definitely gonna be a change of pace forward. I think you're also probably gonna use him more at the 10 to give Gazdag a bit of a break, but I think you can throw him in there. And Quinn, he's been used as a forward, especially like the U20 level. So he definitely, I think he's people don't see him as that, but he absolutely can. And I would love to see Nelson Pierre get some minutes. He's a big bodied, young kid, but big, physical forward. I do think, despite his size, I do think it's someone that I say like with most young players, put some muscle on, kind of get acclimated to the league because, while, being that tall is an advantage, if you don't have much muscle, you're gonna be knocked right over by every center back in this league. And I think you're gonna see more rotation this year. But yeah, between Ua and Carranza, I could expect at least 30 goals.
Okay, I think I'm right around that mark as well. And I'm going to go back to just Corey Burke on. How is that going? Because dude, you knew 60 minutes. Corey's coming in with those fresh legs, and those back lines are just screwed. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. How this is going to look as far as rotation goes. I do realize that Joaquin can play a bunch of different positions, and that's really what I'm curious to see. What will be his strong suit? Like I think he played some winger with Montreal. Obviously, he can play as a 10. He can play as a forward. But what's he more comfortable at? And that's really what I'm going to be intrigued about with that for him.
I definitely think it would be the 10 because in Montreal, he was supposed to be the heir apparent to,
that's right,
to Jordy Mihalovic. Like, I talked to Eve as these rumors were kicking about, and it kind of came out of nowhere. And she did kind of she thought what was the figure going to be? His salary was a bit high. He was still a good player, but his salary was high above his production. But yeah, they all the indicators seemed to be that he was going to be that heir apparent, and I think that's the position that he's definitely most comfortable with. So I think having him, obviously for the purposes of depth, he's going to be more likely coming in as that forward because of all the young guys in that striker pool, and Gazdag realistically is not going. And I think also that's why you have Quinn. So I think having Quinn possibly playing as that 10, and you see Torres up top, I think that's where, when Uwa comes out as he did, maybe he starts playing 90 minutes this season. But I think if Uwa does come out as he has been, I think Torres is gonna be that likely replacement. But I think he's more comfortable at the 10.
Okay. Real quick before we get into our Columbus preview here, who scores the most goals out of this roster?
I'm gonna say Carranza. I think
Okay.
I think it's gonna be close between
Right.
him and Daniel. I don't know if in the I'm thinking just regular season. I don't know if Gazdag can replicate 20 goals. I mean, that's a tough one. That is an insanely tough mark. So I think he might come down, and I think Carranza with another full season with the Union, I think him and those numbers could come up, and I think between all three of them, I could see at least 15 goals between all three of those main players. But I think Carranza might just kind of eke out. It'll be close though, but I think that's the luxury you have at this point.
As we know, it'll be fun watching Union soccer again in 2023. So we're excited to get to it, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, it means match day 1 happens this Saturday. Columbus coming back into town. It's always fun when it's Crew and Union going at it. So, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we're back at it, giving you guys the preview from the other side. So this week, in order to preview the Columbus Crew, please welcome from the Columbus Dispatch, the lovely Miss Bailey Johnson. Bailey, how you doing? What's going on?
I'm good, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on in. We're doing pretty good here. I know you're in Ohio, so you get the cold that's been going on in the winter weather as well, but we're just excited soccer's back Saturday, Bailey.
Yeah, me too. It's actually not that cold here today. It's like 60, so we're not getting the winter storm that's in Minnesota and stuff right now, thankfully.
No, that's coming to us Saturday.
Yeah.
I know. I keep looking at the weather, and it keeps changing every hour.
Will you be in Columbus or in Chester for Saturday's match?
I will be in Chester. Very much looking forward to it.
Nice, very nice. Well, hopefully I will see you there. But Bailey, first off, welcome to DOOP by the Roo. We appreciate you coming in this first time as you being in here. But kind of tell a little bit about yourself and what you do as far as covering the Crew.
Yeah, so I am the Crew beat writer for the Columbus Dispatch, which is the main newspaper here in Columbus. I've been covering the team since the end of August, when our previous beat writer left journalism. I had been covering high school sports here at the Dispatch for about a year and a half. They said, hey, do you want to cover the Crew? I said, sure, why not? Did not have a soccer background beyond my dad is an awesome Atlanta United fan, and my brother goes to school in England, so he's gotten into the Premier League and stuff. But beyond that, I really didn't have any soccer background at all. But I've gone in head first, and I've really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, okay. So are you from Ohio originally?
I'm from Atlanta originally, actually.
Okay.
I ended up here because of the job.
So do you have friends as well that are Atlanta United fans?
Really just my dad. The team came when I was in high school, so not a ton of my friends really adopted them. But I mean, everyone I know has been to games and has really enjoyed that experience.
How jealous are you of that experience down there?
It's pretty cool, I won't lie. I've never been to a Crew game as a fan, so I don't really know how to compare it. I've only sat in the press box. From what I hear, the lower.com experience is pretty good, but Atlanta United definitely has a cool situation going on down there.
I know. I hate to say it. It is a pretty cool experience. Justin, have you been to lower.com?
Yeah, I actually went for the US qualifier back in January, and that I was in the Nordeca, and that was what was I think fourth row. That was an experience. I will say that was certainly a good time.
That is awesome, man. That is pretty cool. I definitely need to. I just want to check out Columbus in general. I hear really good things, so I definitely need to add that to my bucket list. But Bailey, let's get to some soccer talk. And obviously in Columbus, it's a big change, right? You're going from Caleb Porter to Wilfred Nancy, who I honestly have some high words to say about him. I think he's really, really good. But I want to start off by this. From you being close to the club, what do you see as the main differences with Caleb Porter to Wilfred Nancy now?
This is going to sound kind of, I don't want to say like a cop-out answer, but almost like it's too obvious. It's just the new energy. Towards the end of Caleb's tenure, things had gotten very tense, very anxious. They had, the historic problems with conceding goals late in games that were almost unfathomable how it happened every single time. And I think that had really permeated throughout the whole organization, and certainly in the locker room. They were a very tense group. And having Wilfried come in and bring a more joyful approach, he wants them to make mistakes. He encourages them to do that. He wants them to play aggressively. He wants everything to be much less anxious, much more joyful, much more with a positive emphasis. And that has been, just an unbelievable change in these first few weeks.
And I'm sure after the has to feel make the crew faithful feel a little more comfortable with him coming in here. I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it does. They're obviously very interested to see sort of how his tactics will work with the roster they have. And I know there's some concern that they haven't made enough moves on the roster to support that, because it's really mostly the same team that they're bringing back, which we can get into. But definitely, I think the new energy has been welcomed.
Absolutely. Let's get into that real quick. So obviously the main losses for Columbus, Pedro Santos, Jonathan Mensah, and of course Arthur. And then, of course, the big additions. I'm actually pretty jealous. It's Christian Ramirez, 2 Colombians. Justin, this is hard for me. And, of course, Jimmy Miranda there as well. But I that's a really – I think that attack, first off, is pretty scary to start off for sure. But I guess that's the first question. How does Cucho and Christian and Lucas look so far together?
Yeah, they look great. We haven't seen them really work together very much.
Okay.
Christian got hurt about 3 weeks ago now, and has not been a full participant. He told me last week that he's hoping to be ready for Saturday, but I would say that's probably unlikely at this point. We'll get their injury report tomorrow and know better. But when we watched training yesterday, he was not participating with the full group. And I think even if he was, from what I have seen and what I have been told by Wilfried and other people, I wouldn't expect Cucho and Christian to play together a lot as sort of their main formation. Certainly that will be something that's an option for them if they need it late in games, but I think their base formation will be more of a one striker setup with probably 2 attacking midfielders. And obviously that's where Lucas Zelarayan comes in, and that connection with Cucho that they started to build towards the end of last year, right when Cucho came in. They're both very, very much looking forward to playing together for a full season. We've talked to both of them in the last couple of days here, and they just can't say better things about playing with the other one and how excited they are to have a full year. And it's definitely, like you said, a pretty scary attack with the 2 of them as sort of the main guys.
Yeah. How's Cucho feeling heading into the season? Have you been able to talk to him?
He's feeling really great. I talked to him both yesterday in a press conference and today one-on-one, which is the first time we'd sat down together, which was great. He's a really fun, energetic guy, really fun to talk to. I'm working on my Spanish, so we're getting there.
That's awesome.
But he's using a translator right now, which is all good. But no, he's really excited. He's really feels good that he's had a full preseason. He really likes what Wilfried Nancy wants to do. They want to play a more attacking style, more on the front foot, score more goals, they've said, which obviously are all music to his ears as a striker.
Absolutely. Bailey, funny story. My first ever Colombian national team match that I watched as an adult in person, I watched Cucho's first goal as a Colombian team member as well. So that was really exciting. And when I heard the news he was coming to MLS, I was excited. But then I remember Columbus always gives us problems. So I was a little worried about that. But I know. But I'm happy that he came here, because at the end of the day, for young players, you still need playing time, and that's really important. And obviously, I've seen it. Columbus definitely loves him, and I really appreciate the reception that Columbus has given to Cucho Hernandez for sure.
Yeah, he talked a lot about that today, and how, he felt so welcomed by the club in the beginning, and how he really enjoys being the face for the team and being,
Awesome.
The guy they count on to score goals. He's actually talked a lot about how the quality of MLS is a lot higher than he thought it was when he was coming over. Sort of the perception he had didn't match up with what he saw on the field. He thinks it's a pretty strong league, so that was cool to hear.
I'm hoping we get more young Colombians. It'd be awesome to see a lot more for sure. So as far as the defense goes, obviously when we watched Montreal, there was a lot of 3-back sets. Is that kind of the direction as well this year for Columbus?
Yeah, that is the direction, which is interesting because their center back depth is not very significant. They've got Steven Moreira, who played as right fullback last year, working as the sort of Alistair Johnston right center back, right wing back type fluid player. Milos Degenek is going to be kind of the anchor on the back line without Jonathan Mensah. Kind of getting into the reasons they traded him was he's getting older. He's in the last year of his contract, and Wilfried really needs his center backs, as you guys know, to be very good on the ball and puts a lot of responsibility on them in the buildup, which isn't necessarily a natural fit with how Jonathan Mensah is a more classic stopper center back plays. So that really leaves Milos Degenek as kind of the experienced, like I said, anchor. He'll probably play in the middle of that back three. I know they're looking for a left-footed center back to bring a little more experience on the left side of that back line, but they're not expecting to make that signing in the immediate future, which means it will probably be Philip Quinton, who they just signed coming up from Crew 2, where he played last year. He has never played a minute in MLS, and I do expect him to be the starter on Saturday, which will be a very interesting way to start off the season. So I do think it's going to be the three center back look that Nancy has used, and it is going to be an adjustment process for sure in the beginning to see how they fit with that. But it's kind of the whole ethos of the club this year is they want to give young players more opportunities. And I just wrote about it today. There's sort of a process where when you want to give young players more opportunities, you have to have a sort of sink or swim moment. There has to be a moment where your depth isn't that good and they have to play. Otherwise, the pathway they're trying to develop, like Philadelphia has done, tops out at the bench of the senior team, and they never get those opportunities. So there has to be a moment where you see what they can do.
No, that's really important. I mean, Jim has always been methodical when he does play those kids, but, you got to put them in those situations. I mean, the best example is Eastern Conference Finals 21. COVID killed us. And then you see all these kids playing in a huge match. But that really was big experience for all those kids. So that is definitely huge. How's the Youth Academy really been beneficial so far for Columbus?
Yeah, it's been huge. They've really revamped it ever since Tim Bezichenko came in a couple of years ago. Revamped is probably the wrong word, but they've really put a strong investment in. And adding Crew 2 as their second team last year was huge for them. They have a bunch of guys this year, like Jason Russell-Rowe, who won MVP in MLS Next Pro last year. Crew 2 won the championship in MLS Next Pro, so they have those guys who are used to winning and experienced, and the system that Laurent Courtois, their coach, used shares some similarities with what Wilfried Nancy wants to do. Definitely more similarities, I would say, than how Caleb Porter played. So that makes the transition a little bit easier for those guys like Jason, like a Mo Farsi, who will probably play as a right wing back. And they think really highly of even the goalkeeper, Patrick Schulte, could see some more time with the first team this year. So they're really excited about that pathway for those Crew 2 guys coming up.
It's always great to hear. Always great to hear building from within with the kids as well. I'm sure, Bailey, you heard this news right when it was announced, but I want to ask you, Justin, no Eloy Room. It's pretty big, brother. It's pretty big. We saw that last year in Subaru Park, man. So, dude, Bailey just mentioned it. Attack, right, Justin?
Yeah, the game in Chester in April, courtesy of a Eloy Room howler, was definitely not typical of how that Eloy Room would play. The fact that the Wilfried Nancy did come out early and say that he wouldn't be available, I think if you're if you are that front three of Uwa Carranza and Gazdag, and you see a young keeper coming in there, and you see the defense and as I said on Monday, a Jonathan Mensah-sized hole in that back line, I am licking my lips in anticipation of Mikel Uwa just bursting down the seams. I think that's gonna be, if you are Wilfried Nancy, and you've seen how this team has played, I would absolutely be man marking Mikel Uwa, because if you let him in and behind, you saw he does rarely miss. So I think that is a big concern, and Eloy Room would definitely help ease some concerns. So the fact that he is missing is going to be a real question mark that will be asked of how good this back line is without your club captain of several years, Jonathan Mensah.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting for all the points you just raised. It's a new look back line, playing in a back three for the first time in a real game. Guys who have not really played center back before, and Steven Moreira, Philip Quinton, who's never played at MLS before, presumably getting the start. They'll either be playing in front of a young goalkeeper in Patrick Schulte, who has also never played in MLS, or it could be veteran Evan Bush. I really have gone back and forth in the last 24 hours about who I think it might be, and I still don't really know. I can kind of make an equally strong argument either way. I would guess it'll probably be Evan Bush, just for that veteran presence back there, because to put in a rookie goalkeeper behind a young and experienced back line against Philadelphia in the first game of the season on the road is probably asking for a lot. But at the same time, they have shown a willingness to, kind of take chances like that. So it'll be super interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, this could be a lot of goals for Philadelphia for sure.
Oh boy, oh boy, and to that point though, Justin, I feel like every time we do start off season, it's not like we start off slow, but the goals don't always rush like they do during the summertime. But with the mismatch here, are we going to get that explosion for match one, or are we going to still see a little bit of that rustiness?
I think you'll see that explosion. I think the reason being is that you look at the Union schedule, you have you have 2 regular season games before you have a game on the road at Alianza for Champions League. You have a home game, and then you follow it up with another home game for Champions League. So I think because you're going to have 4 or 5 games in the span of 3 weeks, I think you want to start off hot, and I think now having a full off season for the front 3 to really get to know each other. You have Uwa in the country. We don't have to worry about the visa issues again. I think you'll have you have plenty of time. You have you've had that time for them to build it up. Jim has said that he the players came back hungry after the way last season ended and that heartbreak. They wanted to get right back at it, and I think for the first time in starting the season, we usually don't have that. I think this with the mismatch, I think it has the potential for a multi-goal explosion.
Here's the thing: if we were in Columbus, I don't feel as comfortable. Because it's always weird when we play in Chester against the Crew. We typically always win, but when we're in Columbus, doesn't always happen that way. It's interesting between these two. It's always a lot of fun.
And
there.
Actually, an interesting factoid courtesy of our friend at MLS is wild. The last 5 Union Crew matchups there have been clean sheets, 3 Union wins and 2 draws. They said if it was 6 times in a row, that would be the first time in league history since Seattle over DC United from 2011 to 2016. So I think MLS is wild, our friend over there for that.
Hey, we like that. What's also crazy too is that obviously it's going to be cold Saturday, right? Then you got to go to Miami and Salvador, and then I think you got to come back to Philly against Chicago. So a lot of hot cold matches in between that. So it should be really interesting. But let's get into the lineups. Let's get to lineups and some predictions here. So Bailey, for match 1 here. For the Crew, what will this look like? Formation, tactics, and all that good stuff.
So I have to write this tomorrow, and I've been thinking about it all day, trying to figure out what it might be. I'm thinking formation they'll start with is probably 3-4-2-1, and it'll probably be a little like I think Will Sands will slip in to be sort of a 4th center back in there out of possession and that sort of thing. So to say, I think Will Sands will play at left wing back, and the back line will be what we talked about. Mo Farsi, I think, will be at right wing back. Aiden Morris and Darlington Nagbe in the central midfield. That's kind of the 2 guys and Cucho that are going to play pretty much every game, and Milos Degenek at center back. That's a central midfield pairing that they're excited about. I've talked to both of them in recent days, and they are best friends, which is kind of like an odd couple thing with Darlington being married with children and Aiden being 21 years old, but they have a good time together. Ahead of them, obviously Lucas Del Rayon, I think probably Kevin Molino in that other attacking midfielder spot, and then Cucho up front.
Oh, should be interesting. I completely forgot Darlington's on Columbus still. Oh my god, that guy's a beast for sure. Justin, it is match 1. I don't think 3-pack set in this one, but is it going to be the usual 11? Sharpie it in.
Oh yeah, listen. As I say every preview, a man, between the sticks, write it in permanent marker. Andre Blake, like I said, after the year he had last year, you really can't. There's no reason to take him out. You'd be nuts. That back line, as we always say, 3 of the 4 spots are always set. And Kai Wagner, Jakob Glesnes, and Jack Elliott. I think for game 1 against Columbus, because of the potential mismatch, with the defense. I think you're going to have Olivier in there because he does bring a lot going forward. And, his crossing, having both, fullbacks be able to cross as well as they do is a huge bonus in that midfield. I think it's the same midfield that we saw for most of last season. You have El Brujo at the 6, you have Leon and Ali Bedoya at the Shuttlers, and Daniel Gazdag at the point of the diamond, with Mikel Ua and Julian Carranza up top to complete the usual 4-4-2 diamond formation.
All right, usual 11. I'm excited for it. All right, let's get to it. Prediction time, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Bailey, since you are a lovely guest here, we'll let you go first here. Give us your prediction, as we do on this podcast. Give us one key for the Union to beat the Crew.
I think it's like we've talked about, taking advantage of what will be a backup goalkeeper and a new look back line that hasn't played together in a real game yet. There's a lot of opportunity to exploit that, and I think that's really the key. If they're able to do that, that should be a pretty straightforward win.
And the final score?
I'm going to say 3-1 Philly.
Okay. I can see that as well. Justin, give us that final score, man.
So I think as Bailey said, my key will absolutely be, how quickly can the Union get on the front foot? Wilfred Nancy, we saw in Montreal last year, it took about half a season for him to really bed in and for Montreal to buy in. And if we're being honest, Montreal didn't have nearly the pieces that Columbus does in their attacking front, in terms of consistency, in terms of firepower. But that being said, it is early in the season. You have a very, very inexperienced back line, potentially an inexperienced keeper. I think if you're Jim, you are going right to Gazdag and Ua Carranza and saying, we are first 10 minutes, we are jamming that ball down their throats. We are playing those through balls in the channels. Carranza is getting on the ball, connecting with Gazdag. Uwa's running in behind. Like I said on Monday, and I said 3-1 Union, and I will stick by that score. In a first game where that usually not much firepower, I think the Union are gonna want to get ready for Alianza, and I think this is a good way to kick off the season.
Yeah, this one in Miami, man. It's going to be the preparations here for Alianza, but for sure. Raynell's got 5-0. Okay, Raynell, take it easy, man.
I mean, listen, the Crew aren't DC United or Houston. Let's be honest on that. All right.
We shall see. Well, listen, Bailey, we really do appreciate you coming in. And honestly, Bailey, I feel prepared to know what to expect for Saturday. So seriously, thank you so much for coming in here. We all are experts now on Columbus because of you. But where can people find your work in case they want to catch up with the Columbus Crew here?
Yeah, so I'm at dispatch.com, very easy to find, or on Twitter, it's Bailey A. Johnson _. I keep making this plug. If anybody has any connections at Twitter, the person who has Bailey A. Johnson without the underscore hasn't tweeted in like a decade, and I think got taken over by like a hacked account. And I would really love to get that. I'd love to secure that. So if that would be possible, if anybody has any connections, let me know.
If anyone knows Elon, let's
get linked up. Get that solved for me, please.
Bailey had me dying so hard that I unplugged my mic with that one. So we're back now, guys. But Bailey, seriously, thank you so much for coming here today. And guys, make sure to follow Bailey. Make sure to check out her work. Bailey, thank you so much, and we'll see you Saturday. Best of luck on Saturday as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I will see you guys on Saturday.
Sounds good. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for Bailey coming on in here. We're excited. We are ready. I want to just put this out there before we sign off here, Justin. So DOOP by the River was created before the 2019 season. So we're going into our 5th season with this show covering the Union. I'm really stoked about that. And I'm really stoked because I'm blessed to have great people helping me along the way. Justin, obviously, you have been key. You've been a rock every single week in this pod. And obviously, guys, for everyone who doesn't know, Justin is on the board for Sons of Ben. So he's going to be really freaking busy, giving us his all every week. And on top of that, giving you, Elijah just mentioned he's a new Sons of Ben member. Well, here you go, Elijah. You get to listen to Justin, and on top of it, you can complain to Justin. No, don't give him all the grunt of it. But to Justin, to Zach, to Tim, even people who were on the show before, Matt McClain, Jeff Green, Liam can always come on the pod. He's always welcome on the pod. But honestly, guys, thank you so much. I always say the story. This show was started behind a brick wall in Northern Liberties, Philadelphia. And we are growing, and I really appreciate you guys coming here every week looking for that insight. We're not going to stop. We'll be back here every single match week. So thank you to all you guys showing love. And thank you to everyone who has been part of the show. So I just want to say that we're here for 5 years, and we're here for 30 more years, 40 more years. We'll see what happens. But guys, that's going to do it for this edition of DOOP by the River. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe for more. Of course, you can find us wherever you stream podcasts from Apple, Google, and Spotify under DOOP by the River podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Justin Charcuterie. That's great. Charcuterie board, Friedberg. Of course, I go by the name of El Parcero Philly. We're telling you guys to DOOP on. Talk to you guys at the next one. Hopefully, we start 1-0.